Welcome to Inside Sim Racing and our Getting Started Guide to F1 2017. F1 2017 is being released on August 25th on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. As you see here, we have it fired up on the PC. And in this Getting Started Guide, we're going to go through the different settings and options that you have in F1 2017, talk about what they do, talk about what settings you might want to change them to, and also see how it differs from F1 2016 because there are some differences. And the whole idea here is that you figure out what settings you want and options and where they're all at, and you get the stuff set up real quickly so once you get the game, you can get through all this stuff and get to the most important thing, and that's racing. So we hope you enjoy this Getting Started Guide to F1 2017 out on August 25th. So just like F1 2016 and other Codemaster titles, you're going to start off with a couple pages that you kind of got to just get through when you start F1 2017. First up is this gamma adjustment page that sets the darkness or lightness of the screen. I'm going to go ahead and just continue with the default setting here. Then you have this heads-up display area adjustment where you can go and decrease the area that the heads-up display shows or increase it. I'm going to go ahead and increase it because I don't like heads-up display cluttering my racing area. So unlike in F1 2016 where at this point it would just drop you out into the main menu and let you go from there, in F1 2017 it wants you to go and create a driver. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So first off, you select your avatar. There's plenty of different options, pretty well represented from all around the world. I'm going to go ahead and find someone that actually kind of looks like me, and I'm going to go with this guy because he looks a lot like me, but with a stronger chin. Next up, we're going to go and pick out your helmet. And again, plenty of options. You are able to adjust the primary color of the helmet and its hue and all that good stuff. I'm going to go ahead and pick out this plain one. Going to make it more yellow because I like yellow helmets. Keep saturation up and make it about right there. So there is my helmet. Next up, pick out my nationality, and I'll stay in the good old US of A. Next up is driver number, and as you notice, there are some numbers that are missing. That's because there's only so many numbers out there because the real world F1 drivers and test drivers have already gone and got first pickings at the numbers. But I'm going to go ahead and, after I show you the numbers available, still plenty available, I'm going to go ahead and select 24 because Jeff Gordon. I don't care if this is an F1 game. Next up, enter my name. And for those of us in the US, surname is your last name. Come up with your name abbreviation. I think SAB will work out well, and that's what you'll see on the scoring pylon. And there I am in F1 2017 form. Good job, Codemasters. I think that looks like me. So here we are in the main menu, and it has a very similar feel to the past main menus from the past couple of years. But I do like the changes they have made. It does look really sharp, like the colors they have. I also like that the music isn't quite as in your face as it has been in the past. But anyway, we're not going to worry about these different game modes right now because we're really interested in setting up your settings and options for F1 2017. So we're going to go ahead and select the F2 button either on your keyboard or on your wheel. F1 2017, just like past Codemaster titles, does not have mouse support on the PC, which we are on, and I have to say, very frustrating, continues to be frustrating, and I can't say that I was looking forward to mouse support, but it would have been nice to have. So anyway, off of that, and let's go ahead and check out the settings to F1 2017. And we're just going to kind of go down the list here. First up, we have Customize Controls. And if we go in here, Customize Controls, then we have Control Schemes. Let's go ahead and click that. And this whole Control Schemes layout has been adjusted from F1 2016. And I like the changes that they've done. As you see here, you have all different controllers that the game picked up. The keyboard, obviously, my Thrustmaster TH-88 shifter. the Fanatic pedals, I have the Close Sport V3s on, and then my AccuForce steering wheel that's part of the supported wheel list that you can check out at isrtv.com. There'll be a link in the description if you want to check that out. So here it is. They're all automatically found, enabled. It's pretty awesome. We will come back and revisit this later, but for now, we're just going to go ahead and leave it here. So MFD car setup panel, trigger rumble, not too much to worry about here. Trigger rumble has to do with controllers, but we're using the wheel as we do here at Inside Sim Racing, so we're not going to worry about that. Audio settings, audio volume levels, everything is jacked up to 10. Awesome, we're going to leave it there for now. Advanced audio settings here, get some subtitles, some push-to-talk stuff, some more advanced settings. The only thing that I am going to come in here and change now, and this is a personal preference, like a lot of these things that we're doing here come down to personal preference. You can do them if you want, skip them if you don't like to. I'm going to go ahead and put a tone for upshifts, because right now with my steering wheel it's pretty tough to see the virtual steering wheel and hit my shift point. So I'm going to add that audio tone. So that's good. That's enough for audio settings right now. Let's go over to the graphics options. Now in this graphic options menu, some things have changed from 2016, but for the most part it's more of the same with different settings and options that you have. One thing that has changed is they've moved the motion blur strength out here to the graphics options. Myself personally, I can't stand motion blur, so I go ahead and I turn that off. There's that gamma setting that we talked about earlier when we first came into the game we had to play with, left that at 1. Same with the heads-up display area, which we had already pushed out. So let's go ahead and select video mode. Here in video mode, it gives us some information about our system. I'm running the NVIDIA GTX 1070. It gives a resolution that it custom did itself as I started up the game. Now, this 1920 by 1053 is odd, as it's noted as custom. I want that to be at 1080. So I'm going to go ahead and make some adjustments. As you see, I have these large settings here because this is my monitors across all 3 screens, but for right now, I'm just doing this in single monitor, and we'll get a little more to that later why I'm doing that. But 1920 by 1080, that's much better. Refresh rate is set to auto. I'm going to go ahead and just manually set to refresh rate of my monitors. Display mode, going to keep that in windowed. Aspect ratio 16 by 9 looks good. Keeping VSync off. We always suggest that you keep VSync off. VSync reduces tearing, but it causes latency between what your hands are doing on the wheel and what's happening on screen, so we suggest you keep that off. Output monitor at 1 is fine. Anti-aliasing, there's different settings here. You can turn that off, but things are going to start looking pretty jagged and not great when moving. We're going to go ahead and leave it at this TAA setting. Then anisotropic filtering. Normally if I was running triples, I would move this down to about 8x, but since we're on a single screen, I'm going to go ahead and put the 16x. Anisotropic filtering makes a big difference in the Codemaster F1 series. There's a lot of fine details in these cars, and if you have that set down, it gets jaggy and all mushed together real quickly, so best to have that up if you can. And then HDR is not selectable because we are on the PC, and HDR is now an option for the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X if you have an HDR compatible TV that you are racing on, but again, not available on the PC, so we cannot select that. So I'm going to go ahead and confirm these changes and accept that. All usual stuff like it was in F1 2016. Okay, so next up we're going to go and check out the advanced setup, and this has to do with the graphics, and like in the past you have different detail presets that you can go through: ultra low, low, medium, high, ultra high. Ultra high has always been pretty difficult to run, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it at high, which is what it came at. And I'm not sure, but I'm wondering if it went and saw what kind of hardware I have in my PC and automatically set that to high, but I'm going to go ahead and run that. If I was running on triples, I'd probably go down to medium. Or maybe I come in and I would adjust some of these individual settings to my liking, but just for ease of things, we're going to go ahead and just set this at high and forget about it. And since we didn't make any changes, we won't have to restart. Next up on our graphics tour, we're going to go to benchmark mode, and benchmark mode returns F1 2017, but it gets larger, which I love. I love when titles have a benchmark mode. F1 2016 had a nice benchmark mode, but now it's bigger for 2017. In 2017, you can now select what track you want to benchmark, so you can see the differences between the track and between the different settings that you are making in-game. So I really do love that. But for now, we're going to go ahead and just leave this at Australia, because I like Australia because it is challenging with it being a street course. The weather, you can change from clear to heavy rain like you could in F1 2016. And then now you can go and cycle through camera modes. You can cycle through all the different camera modes, or you can go and watch replay or check out all your different driving angles. But we're going to keep it at cycle. We're going to go ahead and say select and turn on frames per second counter, because that is nice to see. And we're not going to loop the benchmark. Let's go ahead and run this benchmark and see how the game runs. So here we are in Australia with a bunch of pit crew up on the wall looking a little bit bored. And let's see what kind of frames per second we get with everything set to high, 16x anisotropic filtering, and all that good stuff. So as this is running, I want to go ahead and comment a bit on the graphics of F1 2017, what I've seen so far. And I have to say, I like the direction they're going. Ooh, that was a pretty big stutter right there. More on that in a second, but graphically wise, I think the F1 series has been going in the right direction. It used to have a really yellow hue, but the colors have gotten much better, continue to get better, continue to get more color in there, less of the saturation. And I have to say F1 2017 continues that, and looks pretty sharp when you're able to turn the settings up. Now, did see a little bit of a hitch back there where the game did lock up. You know, have to state that this is a pre-release version of the game. There's a chance that there'll be updates and optimization before it's released. Also, there's most likely going to be a driver release from NVIDIA when this game comes out supporting F1 2017. Obviously, because the game isn't out yet, I do not have that driver, so that could be causing some issues. So let's keep that in mind as we're watching these benchmarks. One thing that I really wish the F1 franchise would do would be allow you to turn off that heat radiation that comes out from the exhaust pipe. I've never been a big fan of it. It looks a little better once you're able to turn the settings up, but when the settings are down, the car is far away, just the whole back end is just this wavy mess, and I'm just not a huge fan of that. I don't really think it helps out immersion versus other things that could be going on around tracks, so I really wish there was a way to turn that off, but I have not seen a way to do that in F1 2017. So here's our results, and what's nice about this benchmark results is it goes ahead and gives you some information on your PC, your CPU, GPU, RAM, and as you see, we had some pretty low minimum frames there where we had some choppiness, dropped all the way down to 56 frames per second, but we averaged 124 with a max of 150. This is okay for 1920 by 1080, but I will say I run a lot of sim racing titles in my full triple screens at like 7800 pixels width, and I'm able to turn the settings up pretty good with this PC and run at frame rate that's up in the hundreds on average. So I'm hopeful that this frames per second will go up a bit once the game is released and some more optimization has happened, both on Codemaster's side and on NVIDIA's side. So for fun, now we're going to go back to this benchmark mode and try some things out. And the first thing I want to do is I want to change the clear weather to a heavy rain day at Australia and see how it impacts the frames per second. So here we are in a much different looking Melbourne, but the crew still bored on the pit wall. Have to say, this rain looks awesome. I love the puddling, I love how the drops come down, it just looks really great. The spray, I mean, you can't see the front of the field up there. Just really cool effects, looks really great, and as you see right now with the frames per second, it's impacting it, but it's not way lower, which is good to see, because there are racing titles out there that when it rains, your frame rate drops significantly. Now we did get a little more stuttering there, so again, I think that's something that we're just going to have to deal with for now. Hopefully that goes away once the game is out. So let's go ahead and speed this up and see our results. And as you see, overall, the frames per second are a little bit lower. Minimum frames per second actually higher, since we didn't have as much of a nasty dip as we did in the dry. But the average frame per second at 103 versus about 120 in the dry. And max frames per second now down to 116 versus up about 150. So the rain definitely has an impact, but it's not terrible, which is good to see. Lastly, I want to check out one more location that I think would also be demanding in F1 2017 on graphics, and that is, of course, the tight confines of Monaco, and we might as well go and put it in the heavy rain and see how it runs. If you're able to get good frames per second here, and good frames per second would be about 90 in my opinion, then I think you can go and take these settings anywhere and be okay. I love how everything looks. The tires spinning off the line there, all the buildings, just a great depth perception to Monaco. Looks really fantastic. I mean, all the tracks that I've experienced so far in F1 2017, the short amount of time we've had with the game so far, just look really top-notch, and Monaco is no exception. There we go, we saw a little bit of a stutter there. Also, one thing I want to note is you're seeing quite the Congo line going here with the AI. We haven't really had enough time yet to test out the AI and see how they are. We'll give you our final thoughts on that on our review of F1 2017. But in the videos I've seen from Codemasters so far, the AI doesn't seem to Congo line like this as bad. So I'm hoping this is more just due to the benchmark mode than how it'll actually race. Also, we're on some pretty tight tracks here, so it's a little more understandable versus some of the larger tracks, but we'll just have to see for ourselves. Again, I think Monaco just looks great here. I love all the different apartments and all the different tiers of them, as you have the apartments between the track, right next to the track, off on the hillside. As you see, our frames per second are holding up okay, not quite as high as we were getting in Melbourne in the rain, but for the most part, hanging in there pretty well. So here's our results, and a minimum of 71 frames per second, average of 100, and maximum of 118, I say isn't too bad, definitely raceable. So that gives you an idea of what kind of graphics you can see in F1 2017 on the PC. Obviously, F1 2017 is going to look best on the PC with quality hardware versus the consoles, even a PlayStation 4 Pro or Xbox One X. Just more power in a PC like this, running a 1070 graphics card and the Ryzen 7 CPU. So if you have specs like this, you can run pretty comfortably on high settings and single monitor. Now, if you have less than this, you might have to adjust down. And if you have triples, we'll let you know right now that F1 2017, to really no surprise, does not have triple screen support. There's a lot of pretty bad stretching of the screens. That's what I'm experiencing here. And I'm having to turn down the graphics settings quite a bit to more like medium and maybe even a bit lower. So that's a bit frustrating. And also no VR support for those of you who are huge VR fans on the PC. And no word whether or not that's coming, but if I had to guess, I think that's going to be a no. So if you're looking to pick up F1 2017 on the PC, I think, like the consoles, it's going to primarily be a single screen experience. So let's continue on the settings menu and move on to some other different options. Let's start with on-screen display, and obviously this stuff is pretty standard course in racing. I'm going to go ahead and change my units of miles per hour, my temperature to Fahrenheit. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the map because I don't care for myself. I'm going to keep a lot of these other settings on because, again, I'm on a single screen, so I need things like proximity arrows on would be nice. I'm going to turn off tutorial notifications, even though I do think you should check out tutorials. I'm going to be doing that myself. I'm going to keep opacity of the on-screen displays at 100%. Next up is UDP telemetry settings, and this is information that F1 2017 is sending out from your computer to different peripherals, like a D-Box motion platform, or Fanatic LED lights, or this SLI Pro LED. I'm not sure if this SLI Pro LED is just any SLI LED unit out there, or this is referencing the one that Thrustmaster showed off at E3 that they're supposedly coming out with sometime in the Q4 this year, but we don't have one, so we're not going to worry about that now. Some more UDP telemetry down here. If you want to send this out via your Wi-Fi, you can go ahead and do that and adjust your rate. So I assume maybe if you want to go and get some telemetry on like your phone sent from the game, this might be one way to do that. Next up are camera options, and you get this warning right here. So these camera options are really important, but you can adjust these and all other settings in-game. So I'm going to wait until we get to in-game to adjust these because it just doesn't really make sense to do it here in the main menu. It makes a lot more sense doing it in-game, so we will touch on it then. Last up is this Tobii eye tracking, and honestly I never heard of Tobii eye tracking, but this Tobii eye tracking is a lot like Track IR, which was a Track IR setting in the previous page we were on. But instead of only tracking your head movement, which it does do, as you see here, it can also track your eyes, which makes sense because it's called Tobii eye tracking. And I took a look into this and it looks pretty interesting and might be something worth checking out in the future, especially if you are relegated to only one monitor and you want to get a little more side-to-side vision, look in your side mirrors, all that good stuff. But for now, again, we do not have one, so that is all the time we'll spend talking about that. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into a time trial so we can go and finish setting up all our different settings and options. Now, when you jump into the time trials, you have an option of a modern F1 car or a classic F1 car. We'll do a modern car, but just for fun, let's go ahead and check out the classic cars that are in game here. Again, if you want to see a list of all these classic cars in F1 2017, head over to our website, ISR TV. There'll be a link in the description that will give you this list, or you can just check it out right here on screen. So those are the classic cars, a lot of world championships, and I'm really looking forward to checking those out and seeing how they are. But let's head over to the modern F1 cars, the 2017 cars that are pretty beastly looking, and I really like this layout here that they have in game. It's really cool to see the cars up close and the colors just really sharp looking. I really like what Codemasters has done with F1 2017 and all the menus and design look this year. So we're gonna go with Ferrari because why not? There I am with my flag ready to go racing, and we shall do that at Melbourne because I like Melbourne a lot. Okay, so here we are in the pit stall, and if you're familiar with past F1 games, very familiar, you're able to turn the wheel and look around and see the matrix code going on over there, and a bunch of squiggly lines with matrix code over there. So that is all fine and dandy. You can go and look at your leaderboard. Obviously, I have gone and turned a few laps so far with a few other individuals. So there is that. And as always, you can go and get your tablet here and make adjustments to the car's setup. But we will get into this later in our review and other preview videos. We're not going to worry about this kind of stuff today. So let's go ahead and get onto the racetrack so we can finish up talking about the different settings that we're using F1 2017. As you see, it set me up here with my driver view on the TV pod. I want to be in the cockpit, you know, because you do race from the cockpit. Plenty of other options, but again, in the cockpit is where we want to be, so we're going to do that. Then there's some other settings here in the pause menu that I want to go over. First, I want to go to Ghost Settings, and this allows you to see the ghost of your fastest lap on track. You can also see the ghost of your rivals now. I'm not a big fan of having the ghost cars out there. I find them distracting. So I'm going to go ahead and turn all of these off. Next up, use rival setup. You can go and for your next rival, you can steal their setup, which is kind of neat, especially once a lot of people get playing. And as you get towards the pointy end of the field and setups become a lot more important. Kind of a neat feature. You have race director that breaks everything down. These tutorials, which I'm going to click on. We're not going to go through these tutorials, but there's a lot of good stuff here. They were definitely helpful in F1 2016. And by the looks of it, I think they're going to be helpful in F1 2017 as well. A lot of interesting things here that I'll be definitely checking out, and you should too when you pick up the game. And of course, it's going to be turned to garage. So next up, we're going to go and check out preferences. We move over the preferences by pulling the paddles on our wheel. Same system as F1 2016. Really big fan of this system. I think it works out really well. But over to preferences, and first up, going to check out assist. Since this is a new game, it starts us off in amateur mode with all these different assists on. We're inside sim racing, so we're just going to go all the way to elite. You can go to custom and adjust things, but elite and just turning all this stuff off is where I would like to be. Escape out of there. On-screen display, we've already gone and covered this. Nothing new there. Same with customized controls, even though we will get back to those in a second. Audio setting, graphic, camera, UDP, and that Tobii eye tracking. We've done all that stuff. Lastly, when it comes to manage sessions, I really like this option here. We can go and select car and track selection. Obviously, we're here in Australia in a modern F1 car in the Ferrari dry midday time session. If you want to go somewhere else and you don't want to jump back to the main menu, you can go and pick a different track, go to classic, pick a different car, and go and do that. So I really like this option here where if you just want to jump from test session to test session, you don't have to go back to the main menu. I think it's really nice. But we're going to stay in Melbourne in the modern Ferrari for now. So escape out of there and off we go. So now I am driving, and from past experience so far of driving this game, I know that there's some adjustments I need to make to my steering wheel. So I'm going to go in here and press escape again, and we're going to head over to preferences, and I'm going to go to customize controls. Go to control scheme, and I'm going to come down to my AccuForce steering wheel, press enter and click edit. And now we get a warning about control schemes. Not going to worry about that. Now, don't get alarmed here. You're seeing that I don't have the gas and brake mapped. That's because the Fanatic Club Sport pedals were in a separate thing that was enabled. That's taken care of here. We don't need to worry about it here. We're just worried about the steering wheel, which as you see, the steer left, steer right is already mapped. Gear up, gear down is mapped, so we're good there. So, going to pull on a paddle shifter, head over to calibration. Here you can see your steering wheel and your degrees of rotation. I have it set at 540. You can see that your throttle and brake is indeed working, so no concerns there. I really do like that the default settings out of the box have everything at 0. As someone who's sim racing and want everything to be as real and as hard as possible, I want this at 0. If you're having some issues or having some hardware issues, maybe you'll adjust some of these settings, but I much prefer having it at 0. I think this is the most controllable settings out there. Next up, vibration and force feedback. So there's a few more settings here this year than from F1 2016, which is pretty interesting. You have first just vibration and force feedback being on. Then you have the vibration and force feedback strength. It comes default at 100, but it can go all the way up to 150 if you really want to go and muscle up. But for now, I'm going to set it actually at 75 because I'm using AccuForce steering wheel, direct drive wheel, pretty strong. So some changes here I'm going to do that I probably wouldn't do with a non-direct drive wheel. On track effects, essentially this is feeling the road underneath the wheel. When I have this at 100, I get a lot of vibration from the steering wheel. So I'm actually going to go and turn this all the way off. Again, you might not do this with your standard Logitech Thrustmaster or Fanatic wheel, but with direct drive wheel, I turn that off. Rumble strip effects, I keep that at 100. Want the wheel to vibrate when I hit the rumble strips. Off track effects, going to keep that at 100. Want the wheel to bounce up and down as I go bounding over the grass. And then wheel weight, I'm going to go and turn this down. As you see, it's the strength of the tire forces through the racing wheel. And again, with the AccuForce, when I had this set to 100 and force feedback at 100, I was getting a lot of clipping where the wheel just kind of goes numb because it's getting overworked. So I'm going to go and set this at 50, and it felt much better. Here's understeer enhancement when you want the wheel to kind of go, again, limp on you when the front tires don't have grip and you're getting that understeer. For now, I'm going to keep that on, but I'm going to do more driving and see if I turn it off in the future. So those are my new settings. I'm going to go and press escape, and then I'm going to be prompted with confirming these changes. Now, as you see, I cannot override the base AccuForce profile that came with the game. I actually have to go and create a new control scheme. So I click that. I'm going to give this a name. I'm going to call this correct AccuForce settings. Press enter, and now you see it's enabled, and the original base AccuForce settings that the game created is not enabled anymore. And of course, my pedals, shifter, and keyboard still enabled. So now I'm going to go and escape out of this. Escape again, one more time, and now I'm driving with these new settings, and now my wheel feels a whole lot better. Now the weight feels about right. So, as we get a little bit of stuttering there, those are some of the settings to F1 2017 that you will encounter when you first get the game. You definitely want to go and, go through those settings and get everything all buttoned up correctly before you go and race. Last thing you want to do is jump into a race and you have the assist level off, or you can't run because the graphics are terrible, the wheel feels awful. You definitely want to get this all figured out before you go and jump in and race. And now hopefully you can go do that at a little bit quicker pace. So thank you for watching Inside Sim Racing and this Getting Started Guide to F1 2017, coming out on August 25th on the PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. If you enjoyed this Getting Started Guide, please like this video. If you haven't subscribed to Inside Sim Racing, please do so. Also check out our website, isrtv.com, for the latest news, reviews, and our popular forums. We've had plenty of F1 2017 news at our website. Again, check out links in the description of this video. Also, check out our forums and our popular buy-sell section. There's a lot of folks there selling old gear and buying used gear. Really great part of our forums. You should definitely check it out if you're in the market for new hardware or need to get rid of new hardware. And also check out the Amazon affiliate links in the description below. Click on the link, shop through Amazon. It doesn't cost you a thing, but kicks back a little bit towards us and really does help us out. Again, thank you for watching Inside Sim Racing. I'm John Sable. Please take care of you and yours.